Good people of the Grove, it's Chris Madigan here, and I've been waiting so long to talk to you about your car's extended warranty. So if you have a few minutes, just kidding. I just find random props around my house that I use to amuse myself, if nobody else. So I'm grateful to be able to come before you on this video. Lance and his family are out taking some time for some R&R, which is much deserved and well and much needed for them. And so I am excited to be able to bring you your growth group video for this week. So let's jump in. What are growth groups? I'm glad you asked. Growth groups are smaller environments of 2 to 4, no more than 4 people that we get into, male groups and female groups, that we study the word, we dig into scripture, and we are asking 3 questions of the text when we get together. First question is, what does the text that we're reading say about God? The second question is, what does the text say about us or about me? And then the third question is, now based on what I've read and what I've come to understand, what must I do to obey what the text is calling me to obey? How do I live this out? So those are 3 questions we ask. And so this week, in this installment of our growth group video, we find ourselves in Exodus chapter 20, verses 12 through 26. On the last video we had for growth group time, Lance led us through the first, from part of 19 into the first part of 20. And he led us through the beginning of the 10 Commandments. And so I am picking up on verse 12 of chapter 20, where we will see the last 6 commandments of the 10. And then we will get to see a little bit of Moses' interaction with the people and God on a mountain. And so one little bit or nugget of information that I'm kind of taking away from my time in the Word, as I looked back at Lance's last video where he talked about chapter 19 in verse 4, it says this: "You yourselves have seen what I did to the Egyptians." This is God talking, right? "And how I bore you on eagle's wings and brought you to myself." And it was mentioned that there's this desire from God to have intimacy with his people, that he brings them, he rescues them, he brings them to himself. And so as I'm reading through this first part, or the second part of chapter 20, in the 10 Commandments, verse 17 sticks out to me, and I thought might stick out to you as well. And it says this: "You shall not covet your neighbor's house. You shall not covet your neighbor's wife, or his male servants, or his female servants, or his oxen, or his donkeys." And then it says, "or anything that is your neighbor's." So in case I didn't cover all the things that you're struggling with, like, you shouldn't covet anything that your neighbor has. And so that kind of hit me, because I think if we look back at that verse we read in chapter 19, we see that God's desires for intimacy and relationship with his people. And this is something in particular that draws us, I think, away from that intimacy and that relationship with him, because we constantly and often run to things that we find satisfaction in, or that we think satisfy our needs or our desires apart from him. And so that may look like a relationship with a spouse that you see your neighbor has, or that may look like their kids are more obedient than what you think yours should be, or they've got property and you don't, or they get to go on luxurious vacations and you might not get to. And so we start to get in this life, in this world of comparison, and finding contentment in things that are far less than what God offers in intimacy and relationship with him. So that's just a little nugget that I'm taking away. I don't know if you're struggling with it, but this time of year when vacations come up and it's hot outside and people have pools and maybe you don't, like, you start to have these little gnawings at your soul for these things that might make you happy or bring satisfaction. And ultimately, they'll leave us still longing for the ultimate thing, which is Jesus. So that's just a little precursor to getting into growth group time. And so let's dig in real quick. What do these verses say about God? One of the big takeaways that I think I have from my time in chapter 20, verses 12 through 26, I think are in verses 18 through 21. So let me read that for us real quick. It says, "Now when all the people saw the thunder and the flashes of lightning and the sound of the trumpet and the mountain smoking, the people were afraid and trembled, and they stood far off and said to Moses, 'You speak to us, and we will listen, but do not let God speak to us, lest we die.' Moses said to the people, 'Do not fear, for God has come to test you, that the fear of him may be before you, that you may not sin.' The people stood far off while Moses drew near," listen to this, "to the thick darkness where God was." And so some of the things that I think this says about God is that he is perfect. He is declaring that he is holy. He appears in this terrifying way on the mountain. He speaks to them from heaven on this mountain, and there's evidence of his power over nature when we see things like thunder and lightning and smoke. He's also pointing to the fact that he is holy and that there is a fear that comes when dealing with a holy God when we are unholy and sinful people. And so I think God is making this known to them. But one of the biggest things I think that I caught in here, that God is also proclaiming that he is wise. And what I see him showing the people of Israel about his wisdom is that he's revealing their own weakness and need for grace, need for help, and need for rescue that they don't even know they need. And so, in his grace and mercy, he sends Moses and chooses Moses to be a mediator between God and a sinful people. And so, man, what a grace. So, he's this good God. He's holy. He's full of wisdom, and he's also full of grace. And he's about rescuing and inviting his people into relationship with him. And he makes a way for that. And so, that points us to, what does this say about us? I think what this says about us is that we're in need of a mediator. Like, we are sinful people, truly to the core, and we have no hope apart from God intervening and God making a way. So just like he selected Moses to be the mediator between him and his people, the good and better mediator that he has ultimately chosen to be the go-between us, sinful Gentile, to the Father is Jesus Christ, the Son. And so in First Timothy chapter 2, verse 5, it says, "For there is one God and one mediator between God and men, the man Jesus Christ." And so what does this say about us? It says that we need a mediator, friends. It says that we have no hope apart from God intervening and making a way for us to be in that intimate relationship that he so desires. And so he knows we are not capable on our own. And so he graciously and mercifully makes a way. What a beautiful thing. That leads us to, what must we obey based on what we now know? And so I think there's two things for believers and for non-believers. For the non-believers who might be watching this video or maybe in growth group and digging through these passages, maybe for the first time, I think the really simple thing that we can look at is that we are being called to surrender and submit ourselves to this holy God. He has made a way for us. He's made a mediator for you, between him and you. He's made a way for you, the sinner, to come close and to be in, like what we said, that desire that he has for intimacy with those who he's created. He's made a way for you to do that. And so if you have not yet placed your faith in Jesus, like, I pray that the beauty of this understanding of God's posture towards his people would so draw you in that you would be able to just lean on him and run to him as that rescue that we so desperately need. And for those who are believers, I think it's important for us. I wonder if maybe we've been treating the all-powerful God, the creator of the universe and sustainer of our lives, far too casually. We've been taking our relationship with him not seriously enough, maybe is another way to say it. So can I encourage you? Can I encourage us? Can I encourage myself to maybe confess our lack of fear, our lack of awe and reverence? Not fear in like, oh no, God's going to get me, but he has made a way through Jesus that we don't have to live in that kind of fear anymore because we have a mediator. So now we can approach him with awe and with reverence and with wonder for what he's done. And so I wonder if that's something that we need to confess, that we have a lack of true awe and reverence for what he's done. I think this fear, this awe, and this reverence helps us to realize the great lengths that God has gone to draw us near to him. And so what does it say about God? He's good, holy, and perfect. What does this say about us? That we need a mediator, and he's graciously given us that. And then what must we do to obey? Man, we ought to run to him and turn to him, live in a way that we have awe and wonder and respect for who he is and what great lengths he's gone to secure his people. So I love you. I pray that this finds you doing well. And I pray that as you dig in growth group, that you guys are able to really, really experience the Lord in your time together. Love you. Peace be with you.